Hey everyone, welcome to the third edition of the FE Addicts podcast. I'm your host, Edward Hunter. I'm with Jack Giordmaina, Joe Jones, and Matt Murphy, our special guest for this episode. So introduce yourself, guys, starting with Jack.
Hi everybody, you've already had me on the show for twice already. I'm from Formula E Zone, so yeah, thank you for having me on.
Joe?
Well, yeah, this is my second episode. Last time we did a little kind of talk about some of the powertrains. Obviously, we know a lot more now, which is nice. And yeah, I enjoyed being part of this.
And final, before I do it, Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a massive Formula E fan and regular contributor to the Formula E Addicts page. Got into Formula E Addicts at the beginning of the season, and I'm loving it. So thanks to Ed and Jack and everybody for including me on this podcast.
And I'm Ed. I'm head admin of the Formula E Addicts page and the host and brainchild, I guess, of the podcast. Oh, well, along with my right-hand man, Pico, who isn't with us today. He's on holiday in Malta. But we're very pleased. I know there's some bits of news that he predicted correctly right from the first edition that was announced since. So let's dive right into it. I'm going to talk about the big news that was announced just before and during testing. But the single biggest announcement that really sticks out is the signing of Jacques Villeneuve to the Venturi team. Came pretty much completely out of the blue. And I think you know more about it, Jack, the sort of circumstances around which it happened, and since the first private test that he did, and how he got bitten by the bug at Formula E, and then he couldn't let it go and signed up.
Yeah, definitely. He has said that he wanted to be part of the sport from last year from watching it, but he admitted to me that when I spoke to him, luckily on the first day of testing, that he said the visit that I had with Venturi was a friendly visit, like the team said. There was nothing more to it. I didn't expect anything to come from it. I just wanted to test the cars, he said. But then once he tested the car, he was like, "Whoa, man! I really want to be part of this. It's such a cool thing. I didn't really think how cool it was." And obviously with Heidfeld, as we all know now, at Mahindra, so Venturi had a seat. Villeneuve has been friends with Gildo Pasto, the Venturi Automobiles owner, so he already had good connections with the team. And
Millionaire.
The team had an empty seat, and they said, "Jack, do you want to have a seat?" And he jumped at the chance.
Yeah, that's important because a lot of our first reaction, I guess, sort of when we saw that Villeneuve had been signed, was that because it happened first, we got the announcement first, we thought that Heidfeld had been pushed out. But obviously, it wasn't. It wasn't that. Nick had already pretty much made his decision to go to Mahindra alongside Bruno Senna, who's been kept on. Do we think that Villeneuve signing is good for the championship? There seems to be a bit of a mixed reaction to that. Do you have any thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, it's got its pros and cons. Firstly, when I first heard about Villeneuve, I thought it's just another old timer that's just trying to relive some glory days, just like Jarno Trulli. But on the flip side, it's a massive name to bring to the Formula E family. And he seems really, really competitive and is really, really up for it. He's not there just to be a number. He's actually there to win. So it's going to be an absolutely great second season just to see what he's going to do. But again, I do have a bit of a mixed reaction to it, but only time will tell.
I also think, even me, as I think I said in the last episode, I'm quite a kind of noob to motorsport. Like, Formula E is actually what got me into motorsport generally, the wider world of motorsport. And even for me, when I heard that Villeneuve had been signed, he's still one of those big names of motorsport, whether you're a fan or not. Like, Villeneuve, even for me, who wasn't someone who's kind of really into F1, back in the days or watching replays, I think that name factor, as you mentioned, is definitely going to be a big plus for the series.
Yeah, it's been a big name ever since the 1970s when Gilles Villeneuve, his father, made a career for himself. For the older generation, it does have that impact as well. Although, personally, I think Gilles Villeneuve and Jack are pretty cool as well, though. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Jacques Villeneuve fan, but I'm going to go in an open mind, and if he does well, then it's a good signing. If he does badly and quits halfway through the season, which I doubt, he says he's in there for the full... He says he's not there to go on holiday, and it did make me think of Withnail and I and that famous line about going on holiday by mistake. But it doesn't sound to me like he's there by mistake. It's pretty intentional move. So best of luck to him.
What I think's interesting is that he's not here. He doesn't want to be here for one season. He hasn't, he is thinking about the second season because he was asked an interesting question about the Montreal pre, and he was talking about being there. Montreal isn't predicted to be on the calendar till season 3. So with Montreal obviously being, and it being in season 3, and Villeneuve then saying, look, I want to be there. So that means he's saying, look, I want to be here not for just 1 year. I want to be here for 2 years. So, or maybe even 3. It depends how long he wants to go on for. But, he's stated an intention of actually, being a proper driver in this championship. It's not just a one-season wonder.
But he does need to prove himself. I think even though he may have the name and all, I think when it comes to Beijing and then the first few rounds, if he is really competitive, then obviously it would be great for the Venturi team to keep him on, or with another team even. But if he is kind of just trailing at the back and has lost his edge, I'm not saying that is going to be the case, but if that was the case, I don't think the Venturi team or any team are just going to keep someone on for namesake. That people are going to want results at the end of the day. So if he is wanting to, keep it in season 3, maybe it's an obvious point, but he is going to definitely have to perform in this season.
Right. Okay. Let's move on then to the man who Villeneuve effectively, the seat he took, or the seat that Heidfeld vacated. Then, and Heidfeld himself has moved to Mahindra alongside Bruno Senna, as we said earlier. Do we think? Good move, bad move? Because Nick himself said in an interview, I think it was with Electric Autosport, if I remember correctly, he said something like that what was happening at Venturi wasn't happening fast enough, and Mahindra convinced me they had a better package for at least for season 2. Do you think that's do you think he's right, or do you think maybe he's made a big mistake there?
Well, I'm not sure if the actual physical package at Mahindra is going to be way better than Venturi's, because they're both very similar. And alright, Mahindra claim that they have 5 Newton meters more torque than Venturi, but apart from that, they're actually very similar systems. I think more also what he referred to, I think, was the way that the teams run. And if you remember from season 1, alright, Nick did make mistakes himself. He sometimes just pulled in a qualifying time and it just simply wasn't good enough. But also, I think of, as we discussed last week, all the races where he was leading from the front, and then often because of teams' mistakes, he was then pulled back and couldn't do well.
It didn't just happen to him; it happened to Sarrazin famously in the second race at London. Of course, they told
exactly,
Sarrazin,
and that's the Venturi.
He had enough energy at the end.
On top of things, and as a driver, I think maybe once, maybe twice, but he must have got sick of it by the end. And if Dilbag Gill and the team at Mahindra are saying, hey, look, we're also with Campos's help now, we're organised. I mean, look what it did for Nelson.
Yeah, definitely.
Then we can do that for you too. So that must be a lot more kind of confidence inspiring than Venturi, where maybe they just keeping on the same thing. They're like, oh yeah, we're learning from mistakes, but actually not putting in place any radical changes to make sure that they don't do the same mistakes as they did throughout season 1.
With Heidfeld, what's actually quite interesting, when I interviewed him, he said he didn't want to go into too much detail in why he'd moved to Mahindra, but he said he thinks that Mahindra will have a better performance than, and that's the main reason. He said, I feel like Mahindra will be quicker than Venturi this season. And so far from the first 4 days of testing, you could say that at the times Mahindra do look a bit quicker. I don't know how much Venturi have pushed, but from Mahindra's 200 kilowatt lap, they've managed to get into the mid-130s with Bruno Senna and Heidfeld, so they've looked pretty quick. So I think Mahindra have definitely made a step forward from last season, because when he told me, it was on day 2, I believe I interviewed him, and he said to me, I was like, really, you sure? Better performance from Mahindra where they were last year? And Venturi, all that 15 years experience with electric, automobiles. So I thought to myself, that might be an interesting one. But so far, I think Mahindra have showed a very good start to pre-season testing, and they could be slightly faster. It's still way too early to tell, but from testing so far, they might be slightly ahead of Venturi.
And I would also say perhaps they're more reliable too, considering that Venturi had a few problems, specifically in the first 2 test days.
Yep.
Right. Anyway, let's talk about another man on the move now, and that would be Jean-Eric Vergne, who's moved from the Andretti team over to Citroën DS Virgin, alongside Sam Bird, who they're going to keep, probably for a good reason, considering he got 2 wins last season. seems like a good move for Jeb, considering what's happened to Andretti in testing so far, which we'll come into a little bit later. But do you think that this is going to be the right move for Jeb, especially if he's got such a strong teammate? It's obviously good for DS Virgin. And coincidentally, they're going to reveal their livery tomorrow. It looks like there's definitely got a big announcement on Twitter tomorrow, which will be, by the time this goes out, I'm sure it'll be common knowledge. I'll put a picture of it and everything. But yeah, thoughts on the move?
I think that Virgin next season's got the strongest possible lineup on the grid. Myself, I'm not Vern's biggest fan, but he showed in that Andretti car at times last season, especially in the first London E-Prix, that that he could overtake on a very small track, and he was quite fast.
A lot of pole positions as well.
Yeah, he did have some bad luck on the way. But Sam Bird as well, I think, even though he had little mistakes here and there with, staying out for an extra lap, he is quite a consistent driver, and I do think that he'll be up there in the drivers' standings next season. He won't. I think DS Virgin will iron out all the mistakes from last season, and with them two drivers, I think that possibly they could challenge for the team's title.
Mm.
The other interesting thing about Jean-Eric Vergne is that in an interview with Formula E Diary, he said specifically that hopefully, in an ideal world, I'm going to miss 2 races this season, which is a bit of a weird thing to say and kind of devaluing to the championship. Obviously, he's referring to his potential maybe seat at Haas F1, because obviously he's still got the Ferrari test role. We know Haas F1 have got big Ferrari links, so Jean-Eric Vergne kind of leading a double life here. Not in the, not saying he's having an affair or anything, I mean he's got 2 different championships in mind, and obviously if push comes to shove, he wants to get back into F1. So do you think that's wise of him? Do you think it's better to be at the back of the grid driving for Haas, presumably the back of the grid driving for Haas F1, the new team, or do you think it's better to commit to the full season with Virgin, where he might be, winning races, challenging for the championship?
I think if you're going to get a chance to drive a Formula 1 car again, you're going to jump at it. I think even any of us would make that the same decision.
Probably, yeah.
And so I don't blame him. I think Haas F1 won't be at the back. I think they'll be ahead of the Manamarushas, and I think they could be challenging the Saubers and maybe even the Toro Rossos and Force Indias of this world. But that's another story. But if you had a chance to jump into Formula 1, he's definitely in the driving seat for that Haas F1 drive. So if there's a chance, go for it. Fair play. Now, I'm not going to stop him. Formula E is still a brand new series. As much as we love it and we want it to be amazing, we have to admit, if a driver moving from Formula E to Formula 1 is a step up, not a step down.
Yeah, so, Formula E isn't going to collapse without him.
Yeah, without Jean-Eric Vergne, it's like full marks. And he said, look, in an ideal world, I will only miss 2 races because there's no clashes with the, I don't think there's many clashes with the Formula E calendar. But what he means by that is if Haas F1 allow him to go back. That's I sort of made this point earlier in the week. Haas F1 might not allow him to go back to Formula E because of even though the cars are much slower, even though they're safe and so forth, just have a chance of anything happening and then their driver's gone. So
they don't want to have Robert Kubica incident to happen where he gets injured and has to abandon his career.
Exactly. But obviously we saw Nico Hulkenberg going off to Le Mans, so it can be done. So in an ideal world, if Haas says, look, yeah, fine, drive for Virgin Racing when there's no Formula 1, that's fine, then he'll miss 2 races because obviously he's worked out that he will miss 2, but I can't really blame him.
I think Jev is still young, and from the sound of it, even when he joined Formula E quite early on, he said, I'm still looking for a Formula 1 seat next year, and if that's not possible, then I think I might give up. So I think he's still got a bit of as it said in one of the articles, he's got unfinished business still in F1. He still wants to prove himself, I think. When for some other people, like for example Nelson Piquet, when his F1 career finished, it didn't look like there was a kind of good chance of him getting back into it. when
Didn't look like there was a good chance of him getting back into anything apart from NASCAR tracks at one point.
well, yeah, it was a tough time, but that's a different story.
Yeah,
but as
I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, with Jev, it does seem like he F1 is still where his heart is for now. Though I do think he's enjoyed Formula E, but he still wants to be at the pinnacle of motorsport. He's still at that time in his career where it could do something for him.
Yeah. So I guess you can see it both ways, but I think it's fair to sympathise with Jev, and also maybe you can sympathise. Well, I'm not sure how much we can sympathise with them because of course they got the big sponsor signed up to them, which is of course Amlin, as predicted by Jack Pico. In the very first podcast, I think he was the one who said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if they did that?" And well, they have done it, and it is pretty cool. Although they bet Amlin, it is a bit confusing for people who have watched maybe a couple in season 1, then switch off during the off season. They'll tune in Beijing, and they'll see the Amlin car and think, "Oh, that's a Guru, right?" No, the Guru's the other car. But of course, we ourselves getting confused in Amlin Guru, Amlin Andretti. But Amlin Andretti is what it is now, and that's the only one Amlin team there is. So that's not too confusing. They've announced one driver during testing a few days ago, and it is the only female driver who's been given a full season contract, I believe, and that is Simona Di Silvestro. Obviously, they've lost John-Eric Verne, putting Di Silvestro as the lead driver. Do you think that's a good move? She hasn't got amazing results. A one podium in IndyCar, I believe, is the only thing that really stands out at the top level. But she's got a fair bit of experience. Do you think she was the right choice?
Yeah, of course. Well, I knew she was signed 4 weeks ago, so I was very surprised.
Yeah, everyone knew, but currently spilled it, basically.
It was announced with the Amlin and Dre thing, It wasn't.
Yeah, it seems that formally it's sort of been.
It was. I was very shocked. I was like, yeah, we know. She knew. She was very happy to say that she was there even before this announcement. So I was very surprised. But anyway, we'll gloss over that. But yeah, why not? She's done good. I don't know if she has. She had the best time of testing, but. She's an experienced driver. She's got a decent record behind her. She's not like she's done awfully like some female drivers. She's actually.
I was just playing devil's advocate there. I'm actually.
She's actually like proved herself and she has, if anything, she has proved that a female can race alongside a man. So I think she'll have the chance once she gets to grips with the car. If she gets the chance to get grips with the car before Beijing, then. Why not? I think she can be a real star in this championship.
Any thoughts, guys?
I totally agree with Jack. I thought for a first outing in Formula E at the end in London, thought she did fantastic.
Nearly sneaking into the points.
She did some great overtakes on Truly and also her teammate at the time, Verne. And again, it's also highlighting, the potential of women in motorsport. We haven't seen any decent, lady drivers so far in Formula E, and hopefully Di Silvestro will break the mould. I think it's a very exciting time for women in motorsport and also for new drivers in Formula E.
Yeah, I agree. I think she could definitely really, really prove herself. She has, in flashes, proven herself in IndyCar for sure. And I think that Formula E is a really, really, really good opportunity for her to be up against really good field, but also in if Amlin Andretti get their car together, also hopefully in a close field.
So anyway, we've had 4 days of testing too far, 2 more to go before everything gets packed up, and over September it's ferried off to Beijing. So we've got a pretty, I wouldn't say the whole picture, but we've got a good picture of where everyone is at the moment, with only about 2 days to change it. So I don't think we're going to see any last-minute dramatic turnarounds in terms of performance. But obviously the headline times, of course, on the first 2 days, Edams, on the first day particularly, I think it was Edams and Buemi who were setting the pace, and sort of low 131s and stuff like that. And then on the second 2 days, days 3 and 4, which have just passed, we saw the AT team, who are running only one car in testing. Someone asked me about that. I wasn't quite sure why they were doing that. I believe I just thought it was their philosophy and maybe to save money or something.
No, that's incorrect. They weren't running one car; they were running both cars.
Oh yes, but one at a time.
Just the one at a time. But if you think, look, if the Team Aguri...
Are they charging the other one?
Yeah, Team Aguri did the same thing, and they did the most laps out of anybody. So it did have a good philosophy to it.
But anyway, so Daniel Abt first broke a new lap record, and then Lucas Di Grassi on the day after, when it was his turn, broke it down even further, getting into the 1 minute 29 marks around Donington, the Formula E car. I'm not sure exactly what kind of pace that is, because I'm not exactly sure what the... is it MSA Formula, who is basically what people are saying is sort of the ordinary sort of combustion engine car that is around a similar pace. So I'm not sure exactly what the lap record for an MSA Formula car, or Formula Ford rather, is around there. But there's definitely a good achievement for the Abt team, certainly, and it puts them in a good stead, because the EDAMS team seem like they're not too far behind. But in a video that came out, I heard Nico Prost saying something along the lines of, we're a little bit worried about reliability. And it could be that in these opening races, that's like the deciding factor in who wins all the races.
Yeah, that's true. EDAMS, I spoke to Nico Prost. Yeah, they're worried. Those lap times by EDAMS have got their head scratching a little bit. You
mean by Abt?
Yeah. Sorry, what did I say?
You said by EDAMS, so they're confused about their own lap time, according to you.
My mistake. Yeah, they got their head scratching about Addisport Apt's times, because Buemi teased the Abt team by saying that they reckon that the EDAMS car can get into the 129s. But, so then, that sort of motivated the Audi Abt team to go for it. They were like, okay, then, if they can do this, what can we do? But then I spoke to Nico Prost, and it was like, we're struggling with our qualifying pace. Our race pace isn't too bad, but they don't understand why they can't get a quick 200 kilowatt lap. They're really confused. So they said they've got a lot of work to do to understand what they have to do to get the 200 kilowatt performance out, because at the moment they're about a second off the pace in qualifying.
Do we yet know what the failures were? Was
Nico Prost had a gearbox failure, and Sebastian Buemi had an electronic problem. And
they also said they're having a few setup issues, although that may be specific to Donington. Although it is worrying when you think the EDAMS were so dominant, particularly on the first 2 days, and even last year at testing at Donington, that now suddenly the Abt have taken the initiative.
Well, this year's a completely new era in Formula E. We have to we had our first season, which was a spec series, and now it's a new era, like how Formula 1 was 2 years ago. Completely all new powertrains. You don't know who's gonna get it right, don't know who's gonna get it wrong. Teams that were quick last year and not so quick this year. So there's a lot of changes, and we have to expect that.
I think with both Abt Scheitel Audi Sport and with the Renault EDAMS team, both have these massive manufacturing giants behind them, Schaeffler, some millions, if not billions of dollars behind them. Same with Renault. So I think both teams, especially with EDAMS now being a bit worried, they're going to just really have to invest time with engineers figuring out the problems. I mean, all teams will for sure, but I think with their massive backing from Renault, they're just going to have to invest lots of man hours trying to fix these problems now. And especially, apparently, they're using a 2-speed gearbox made by a French company called Sadev. So if there's problems there, they've only basically got a week now to get it fixed.
Okay, we're going to move on to Next EV next. But do you have anything to add about EDAMS and Abt and the rivalry between them, Matt?
I think it's just going to be a continuation from last season, really. Both teams have done very well in testing, being quite close. Obviously, Abt have broken the 130 barrier into the 129s. I do think, again, it will be a standout driver from Renault and a standout driver from Abt, both going for the championship. It'll be Di Grassi and Buemi. I'm not sure if Next EV can sort their car out to match those two big rivals. But, there is 2 days of testing left. I don't think there's going to be any massive changes, as you've said before. But Abt do look good, and I really like the it's like an electric roar of the engine from the the testing footage. So I'm looking forward to that as well, and hearing that with my own ears rather than seeing it on a video. It all does look exciting.
Yeah, we haven't really talked too much about the sound. I guess you were at Donington, Jack. Are there any before we go on to XTV? Were there any teams in particular that really stood out? Obviously, Apt sounds like it was the loudest, but I heard a lot of people talking about DS Virgin as well.
DS Virgin, you can't hear.
Oh yeah,
You can't hear that one. It's unbelievably quiet. You don't even hear it coming around the corner. That's how quiet it is. Yeah, Apt is by far the loudest, and it's actually quite a good sound. To be fair, Venturi's powertrain, both run by Dragon and Venturi, obviously, that doesn't sound too bad. Mahindra's has a good sound to it. They're all different. They're all just a little how can you describe it? Audi Sport Apps is like a very high pitch, not squeal, but like how Matt said, a roar. It's like woo. It's like properly loud. Whereas Mahindra's, like that's sort of like it's not like
it's like a kid going down a slide.
It's like a proper high pitch, but you hear it. And I tell you what, I was Jack Villeneuve, and to tell you how loud these powertrains were, and which surprised me a little bit. I was down by the Craner curves, taking some photos, and I could hear Jack Villeneuve was the only car out on track, and I could hear him on the start-finish straight coming all the way down before I got to where I was by the bridge, where the bridge used to be, if you remember Donington Park. I was standing there, and I could hear him on the start-finish straight, and that's, for an electric car, it was with 80 decibel of sound, probably a bit more than that now. I thought, that's quite loud, I can hear him.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm not sure if the acoustics will be quite so effective on street circuits as well, because obviously you've got a lot more barriers in the way, so it's sort of channeling the sound. But I noticed at London, I actually missed the start at the second London E-Prix. I was at turn 13, the other end of the track, and just talking to people. I didn't have the radio on, and I completely missed the start. I only knew the race would start when they came round. So yeah, hopefully.
What I really hope is that the guys from Aurora Media do a same great job on putting the microphone in somewhere in the powertrain or just behind it to not get wind noise but just get a really good motor sound, which they did a great job with on season 1, and I think it will be especially cool on TV, where you see it kind of flip between two different cars and then you just hear the completely different noises between, for example, Apts and Mahindras. I hope they do that well.
Yeah, of course. Well, we have to hope that for terrestrial TV viewers in the UK, that ITV can sort out a contract soon, because we have heard nothing about that so far. Although we still got the official Formula E live stream, so I guess... Lost. Oh yeah, all is not lost. Anyway, we're going to talk about next TV, and now we have to. So the reigning world champs, obviously, with Nelson Piquet Jr., not looking quite as strong as last year, has to be said. We talked a little bit about was it the twin motor sort of philosophy that they're carrying out, having two drivers being used throughout the 4 days, obviously Piquet being one of them and Oliver Turvey being the other. Any thoughts on where the problems might be? Because they had to abandon the second day, and they shipped it back off to Germany, didn't they?
I think they had software issues in the Monday, Tuesday. They went away and they didn't really come back. But, interestingly, they're now saying that, at the moment, from the Monday and Tuesday session, they said there was no problems. We don't have any problems. They haven't run at 200 kilowatts. They haven't run anything near 200 kilowatts.
That's evidenced by their times.
They've been running at 100. They've been running at 150 and below 150. They haven't.
Wow.
They don't. Nelson. I spoke to Nelson Piquet. It was sort of like the most weirdest conversation I've had with him, because he didn't look best pleased. To be fair, he looked kind of frustrated. But then he said to you talked to him. I said, look, what's the issue? He said, we don't have any issues. And at that time, he just stopped out on track. And Turvey had just stopped, but Turvey apparently they did a battery check so basically they ran it on low charge and they wanted to see how far it would go before he stopped. So he said that wasn't a problem. He said his wasn't a problem. We just tried something out and it didn't work. But he said there's nothing to be too concerned about. It's just testing. We just test things. But he said this track is pointless for Formula E. It's nothing like it. We've done 15 really solid days in Spain, and we said we're coming here and we're just validating things. We have nothing to test. He said to me, which I thought was
is it just a show for the public then, according to people?
He's just they're just going out to validate things. They're not doing many laps. But I think they realised they had a small issues. Turvey was then the best person to speak to because I thought, well, I'm not getting much out of you, Nelson. and I thought, well, I'll go and speak to Turvey. And Turvey sort of said the same. He said, yeah, we don't really have any issues. Yes, we're 2 days behind because we didn't do any running in the first 2 days of testing. But, now we're starting and, we haven't... He said, I've gone past 150 kilowatts in the car because we're not chasing the time. So it looks like, as I said to him, I said outside it looks like you have problems. You're 7 seconds off the pace. He said, yeah, but we're not really focused on lap times.
I'm slightly hesitant at how much they are telling the truth, because if, for example, I'm not sure if this is true. This is what I've been told by a guy called Stefan, who went to some of the tests. But he said that in the media centre, when I think it was Nelson Piquet broke down first, that they were saying it was a gearbox problem, and that's why they sent the actual physical parts, back off to Germany, I guess to Rational Motion's headquarters, to check it out and say, wait a second, why did this fail? They're single-speed gearbox, this is. So I don't know. That's all I've been told, but I'm not entirely sure if they're worried. That's why Nelson Piquet was saying in that interview, we don't want to push the parts. So I think maybe they're slightly surprised that they've had all this testing, which they claim, went all swimmingly in Spain, and now all of a sudden it appears that they might be having some problems.
Yeah, I do think Next TV are putting a brave face on things. They have been really quiet, especially throughout social media and the media itself, and it did take them quite a long time to actually, tell the fans that, the parts were being sent off back to Germany. So I do think there is issues for Next TV, and they don't really want to market that at the moment. I'm not, a big PK fan or Next TV fan, but
you
I
can
do
be an
actually
Oliver
quite
Turvey fan then, man.
yeah, suppose, but I think they may be in the first couple of races, maybe towards the back of the grid with the Truly cars and the Aguri cars, because I think it will take a bit of time for Next TV to try and catch up with the other teams.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you thought Next TV were doing bad, let's have a look at Andretti and Trulli now. Andretti got a couple of laps together so far, but running at nowhere near full power and having tons of software issues. Trulli haven't left the garage yet at all. Once on the first day they tried to and aborted that pretty quickly. But it's not easy to be a fan of those two teams, and it's not easy to be in those two teams at the moment with all the pressure on them. Obviously, it doesn't look good. Do you think? There's a question asked on the Facebook group a while back. Do you think at this point should they persevere with the powertrains and try and get them ready for the first race, or do you think maybe they should go the Team Aguri approach, put the last year's powertrain in, and sort of hope for the best?
Well, I've been talking to a few people about this, and I was hoping to try and get someone from Andretti to tell me if they were considering going to, but they don't want to talk about it. But I don't think they will go back. Andretti maybe truly might, but to me it's an insult to Houston Mechatronics, to TE Connectivity, to Matica for truly to say, look, you've given us this powertrain. Oh, but we're not going to use it because you're not competitive. Well, then, if I was TE Connectivity, Houston Mechatronics, and Motomatica, well, I'll say, well, fine. Good luck next season 3, because we ain't going to help you. Because, if you're not going to stick with us for the future like you wanted to, then, and you're going to jump ship at us at the first sign of problems, then, why would you stay around? I wouldn't stay around if it was my company. So, but I don't think they'll do that. I think, if they do go for the season 1 package, that's it. They're not allowed to go back to, if they fix,
they can't do it mid-season.
Houston Mechatronics, if they fix it after Beijing and they found the solution, that's it. You can't put it back in the car. If you decide to jump to the season 1 package, that is it. You can never go back to your package that you had last season.
I think it's a tricky one, but to be honest, there's nothing I really, especially with Trilly, who did struggle even with the season 1 stuff last year. I don't think even then they would be able to score points, because it's not like they've spent tons of time optimising their
Like
season
Aguirre
1
have.
package.
Yeah.
Like Aguri have. Trilly would be using their struggling season 1 powertrain. When even if, let's say, theoretically, they haven't got it right for Beijing, they haven't got it right for Malaysia, they've still then got a couple of months, and then let's say at last they get it fixed for like Punta del Este, then they will be able to. Well, they hope that they'll be hoping that they'll be able to score points then. Then there is something to gain. So I don't know. I think maybe they're just going to have to brave it out.
There's one thing I noticed, because after the first 2 test days, TE Connectivity did a little bit of a Google Hangouts thing, which is basically like a Skype call, but anyone can sort of ask questions in text form. And I asked a couple of questions about the test, actually. I dived right in, because I thought, why not? It was on the Wednesday after, I think. And they were really open about this sort of thing. They said, oh, well, we're just having some software issues, but we know it looks bad, but we think we have a fix. And they were very open about it. I was really surprised. I thought they wouldn't answer it at all. But so, yeah, I definitely think that it's not like TE Connectivity are just sort of pretending there's not a problem. They're aware of it, and they're putting Roger Giriffs and all the Andretti guys working hard to sort it out, as are Trulli, of course, doing it a lot less publicly, I think. So from that perspective, there is less embarrassment for Trulli, I think, because...
Jack, what do you think about Trulli? What have you heard about what they're doing?
Nothing, because they haven't shown up. There's been no Trulli. There was no Trulli. You knew Trulli wasn't there because there was no trucks, or vans really. There's no trucks. There was no personnel. There's nobody. There's literally...
But they're not even in their workshop, their base.
Well, yeah, but there's no one really you can talk to, because there's hardly... it's very deserted at Trulli. It seems like there's,
Do you think they're going to come back for the final 2 days?
Well,
or do you think they won't bother?
Well, they have to try.
Yeah, they do.
I don't think they're not going to say, oh,
it's not what the fans want to see.
We'll just put the cars in the box on the 28th of August there, and then
hope for the
best. Put them on the train to Beijing, and we'll try again in Beijing.
Both blow up on the grid. Yeah, okay.
But I think they'll try. But they haven't shown up. I think they have similar. We have to remember, the Trulli team have not tested. They have not done any of the 15 days in season.
The only testing they have done.
Neither have Andretti.
I know testing.
No, Andretti have had all that problem throughout the whole of the 15 days of testing. They have tested. Well, they haven't tested, but they used those 15 days. But they had the same problem in all of those 15 days that they've had.
Andretti definitely saw it come.
So they have put the car out. Technically, they have attempted to go testing, but they've had these problems throughout the whole of those 15 days and so far today. But Trulli haven't done any of that. They haven't, So when that car went out and stopped in the pit lane when they went out on day 1, so obviously there's some sort of software glitch. They haven't, obviously, because initial startup wasn't good enough, because the software that they can tinker with hasn't actually, the same problem that Andretti ever had. It's just not talking to one another. The gearbox and the powertrain and everything around it, the hydraulic, everything. It's just they're not talking. And Drake sort of got some positive signs at the end of day 4. They did a couple, not back-to-back runs, but they managed to get around 4 or 5 times back into the pits without actually stopping on track, whereas they would get to the first corner or a couple of turns or at the exit of turn 1 or by the Melbourne loop they'd stop, and you're just like... So by the end of the day they actually did some laps without actually stopping, which, was progress for the team. So
I'm sure Simone a bit more encouraging after signing that contract with them, think, am I going to be in the whole season of this? And then finally getting some running at the end must have been good for her morale a little bit, and for the team as well, because it's been a bit harrowing for them.
It's been absolutely... I've been in that garage a lot through testing, and you can... the first 2 days it was like, okay, look, we'll find a solution. Like they said with the T connectivity, we'll find a solution. Then they didn't, and then they're like... I was watching them, they're all arms folded, like... hoping and praying, and I was listening to all the failed startups, and then once on the day 4, once they find with about half an hour left of the session, they actually got it to fire up, and the relief in the garage when it fired up and they could go through the gears, it was like, oh my god, okay, let's get this car out. And It was a huge relief. Everyone was scratching their heads, phone calls constantly. Everyone's on the phone to people back in America to try and find solutions. They're working flat out, Dre. I can't fault them. It's great to watch from an outsider, just literally standing in the garage and watch them work and try and do their best to get this car out on track. But there were some really concerned faces at Andretti at some points during day 3 and day 4. People were like, "Oh my god."
I think they probably, though, even like in that Google Hangout, I think they were putting on a brave face. I'm not saying that then. I think they really are working hard from the sound of it, from what you're saying, Jack. And I think they probably will find the solutions eventually. But from my point of view, this is where their kind of lack of experience is showing.
The last 2 testing days are going to be absolutely pivotal for both Andretti and Trulli. Trulli they have to turn up, they have to do some laps, they have to test before Beijing. So I think Trulli's put so much time, so much effort into, his Formula E journey, his Formula E experience, and, last year at times, the Trulli team and, Jarno himself sometimes were laughable, especially, overtaking the chicanes in Moscow as well. So
a little bit, yeah.
I really think that they are actually going to be giving all their efforts in these last 2 testing days because they have no other option. They have to. So fingers crossed that it does come off for both teams.
If they did revert back to season 1 package, it would just be so much wasted money on Tecnomatica's side and on Trulli's own side. I'm sure he's investing his own money in this.
Yeah, and it's not just this season as well. The seasons beyond that I need to think about too. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the woes that Andretti and Trulli have gone on quite a bit anyway. But I think the final thing I really wanted to cover in testing was Team Aguri, who have had, I think fair to say, they've been quietly kind of confident. They've been testing a lot of French drivers, coincidentally, for some reason. So Tom Dillman from GP2, Nicolas Lapierre from World Endurance Championship, used to drive for Toyota in LMP1 historically, and Nathaniel Berton, who was also GP2 driver. And the other big news about Team Aguri is that I'm not sure when exactly, but I know that Mark Preston has been shipped out to it, and Sakon Yamamoto is going to be driving. They're going to be doing a demo in Tokyo. So any thoughts on that, guys? I had a bit of news about Team Aguri's drivers from a secret source that I was going to carry on, but go on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, go on.
No.
Let's let Matt speak. We haven't heard much from him, sorry.
Team Aguri, I have seen on the internet today that they're planning to announce their 2 drivers for the season at the final test, luckily, which I'm going to, so hopefully I'll be around the Aguri garage at that time. But it's a, at the moment, you've got 3, I'd say, equal drivers vying for that seat. You've got Lapierre, who had the most testing laps, and you've also had Berthan, who's actually, the quickest out of the drivers that have tested.
Although he tested later on, so maybe the car will be quicker at that point.
Yeah.
Set up issues out the way.
And also, will Salvador Duran, go back to Team Aguri as well? We just don't know. It's just a massive open book. Even Yamamoto may possibly throw his hat into the ring, so we'll see what happens.
I don't think he really ingratiated himself too much in London.
Any news about, I know that Duran was spotted outside Trulli's garage. Is there anything to read into that?
I think Duran should be a shoo-in for the Team Aguri. I would be to be honest with you, I'd be shocked if he wasn't in the Team Aguri seat. I know he did well in testing. He tested in day 1 and he had a solid day 1 test, to be fair. He wasn't like, if you're looking at the times, I know Berton was quickest, but yes, can't read too much into that. They've had 3 days of testing before he got in the car to learn about the car. But, but Salvador Duran did a 132.5, I believe it was, which Lapierre did, and Dillman was about 2 tenths quicker on the second day, and and obviously Berton was about 7/10 quicker, but they've obviously done a lot of testing by the time Berton got in the car. So I wouldn't be surprised if Salvador, he's a known quantity to the team, he knows how the team works and operates, he knows the engineers, he's got that sort of, engineering status with the team because he's worked with those people. And I don't think he did bad, so I'd be surprised if he wasn't in the team. But if he really wants to be in the championship, there is one seat still up for grabs, technically, and that's at Trulli. So if he doesn't get the seat, then, if he wants to fish around at Trulli, then fair enough.
Okay. Before we move on from Aguri, there is the, two things really. First off, do you think the Tokyo demo is going to lead to a Grand Prix, E-Prix there?
I think so, yeah.
It's hugely popular in Japan.
They really, Formula E really want a Japanese E-Prix. I don't know how long. I think this could be a Season 4, Season 5 thing. I don't think it's going to take a while to plan because, if you're going to shut down Tokyo, you need to seriously plan it.
And you need to do it properly as well.
You
don't
need
want
to
to
do
rush
it properly. You can't rush into these things. So I don't think we'll see it for a couple of seasons. But, if this thing is successful, I think this is what it pins on. If this test is successful, people flock out to see it. And and it's all over Japanese papers, and they love it, and it's got rave reviews. Then I think the Tokyo government, or people, local authorities in Tokyo, will
might pass a few bills, relax a few road racing laws. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, let's do this then, because people like it, and it looks like it was a very good show, and everyone really enjoyed it. I think so. If it's successful, then yes, then we could be going to Japan.
Also, I don't think you want to forget that you've got two massive manufacturers. In Japan, you've got Nissan, of course, who are a massive EV maker, and I believe Mitsubishi. I'm not sure, are they Japanese? But they do the plug-in hybrid Outlander, which is the biggest selling PHEV in Europe, I think. So if in Season 5, for example, you could get those manufacturers in as well, that would just be amazing for the series.
Yeah. I spoke to Mark Preston. A couple of days, on the third day of testing, and I said to him, "So what you hold?" So I said, I just cheekily asked him. So I said, did you stick with the Season 1 package because you're waiting for a Japanese manufacturer for Season 3?" And he said, "To be honest with you," he joked. He said, "No, that wasn't our intention," and obviously I sort of knew that. But he said, "To be honest with you, for Season 3, I don't care who we have, as long as we have a manufacturer by Season 3." I said, "I don't care if it's Japanese or Indian or Jamaican." He said, "I don't care. I said, as long as we have a manufacturer."
As you all know, Jamaica is a powerhouse of EVs. So anyway, the gossip that I heard from anonymous source, they've asked me not to name them specifically, and also they said, forget some of what I've said, so I'll try and remember not to say that. I'll read out what they've said to me. Gossip. I asked Aguri on Monday when their drivers would be announced, and she told me at the last minute. I said, what, as in October? She said it was looking that way. But then, of course, we got down to the same there next week, so I'm not sure how much leverage there is to the rest of it. She also told me, off record, that although at one stage it looked like De La Rosa was going to be signing, that was now unlikely. And, I'm not sure. Personally, I think the livery they've got, there must be a new sponsor or investor coming in, and I think, I'm not sure if it's anything to do with the French drivers they're hiring, but it could be someone new that we don't know.
There is definitely a French sponsor in the air at Team Guri. There was quite a lot of people handing cards out to Mark Preston in terms of possible sponsors. So there was Aon, I think, was there, which was quite interesting. Who handed a card to Preston before I interviewed him. So I think there's definitely something to do with the French drivers, why they're there. In terms of those rumours, to be fair, Mark told me that their new drivers had to be signed and had to be done next week. He said, no ifs or buts about it. It has to be sorted by next week. He wants them in the car next week, no ifs or buts. So whatever happens on Monday and Tuesday, if it's not the confirmed drivers, then something has gone massively wrong. Because he's told me, look, he said, our confirmed drivers will be in the car next week. So that's how long you have to wait. So.
Right. Any other business that we want to talk about from testing? Dragon had a new livery, this sort of electric red thing that they've been showcasing, and they've kept their two drivers. I think Dragon look like they're in decent shape.
Dragon look okay, yeah. They're happy. They think they're in the mix of what's going on, and They don't think they're far away from Audi Sport Apt and so forth. So hopefully they think that they could.
They seem a bit more best of the rest though at this stage.
Sam Bird told me that they think they're quicker than Edams in race pace. He said from what they've seen and what they've seen Edams done, they reckon they can give Edams a good run for their money in race trim. Mahindra have just been testing quite a few things, definitely with the sell-up, trying to learn things with the tyres, according to Senna, because that's where teams, if they can understand the performance of the tyres this year and, understand how to generate the heat, get the grip from in the corners, get the setup so they obviously get the tyres to do what they want to do, then that will be the big gainer this season. So there's a lot of emphasis on the tyres, and that's what the Mahindra team have been trying to focus on. No team has done really any long full race runs. No team have gone for a half race distance in terms of go from a full car to a 0% car. No team have done that. From my understanding, because they've all done about 5, 6, 7 laps, and you can probably do about 12 laps at Donington. So none of them have gone for a full race distance yet, which I found quite interesting.
So anyway, I think time to move on. The last thing before we start to do our final little game and wrap up is, where's round 5 going to take place? According to Jack and Formula E Zone, it's not going to be Mexico like they originally thought. Things have changed in between them, and it's somewhere else that's already signed up, and they want to announce at a later date. We've heard a little bit about Lugano in Switzerland. They have a proposed circuit. Have you seen the video? It says Formula E truck instead of track, so I guess English was not their strong suit. But yeah, and well, they're going to make a truck apparently, and apparently Trulli Formula. I'm not sure if this is what they've been doing instead of working on their powertrain, but they've been they've inputted some. They've used some of. They've been involved in planning the layout basically. So Lugano's got a bid. I'm not sure how exactly legitimate it is because of that spelling error. But once we talked a little bit about Tokyo, and which I think is a bit more of a long-term thing. Canada, of course, because of Jack Villeneuve coming in. There are a lot of potential candidates, and it's difficult to pin one down at this point, I think. But Mexico seemed very clear earlier on, so it's very strange that it's been...
Yeah, Mexico was clear, and it was... When I reported about it back in Berlin and coming into Monaco, it was Mexico, I've been told. It was Mexico. But something's happened in negotiations, and it's fallen through.
Perhaps they're focusing on the F1 Grand Prix instead.
Yeah, that's what some people are saying. I did sort of hint that, and people didn't give me, from Formula E, didn't give me a straight answer on it. They didn't want to say. But from what I gather is things have changed very quickly, from being Mexico to not being Mexico to being another place, and it being confirmed. I honestly, with this Laguna thing, or
Laguna Seca. That would be great actually, but it wouldn't quite fit with the street circuit.
Yeah, but with the Swiss Prix, I think it's a long shot. I don't think it's from what I believe and what's going on. I feel like it's an alternative, and it could happen in the future. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like it was the last resort track. I don't think it's confirmed, because otherwise I don't think Formula E would have allowed them to do what they've done, because by doing what they've done, then they would have just confirmed it. So I think that could be done in the future. But the only implication was that the round 5 that was supposed to take on March 19th, that race wouldn't happen on March 19th. If that Swiss Prix became the location, they'd move it into May. To keep it with the European section, because it didn't make sense to go
in terms of travel as well.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to go back to Europe and then back to thing for
South America. Yeah.
Or alternatively, they would be able to move Long Beach. I don't know if that's viable, but if they moved Long Beach back and then put in a European E-Prix, then it might be possible.
Maybe, but Formula E said they had scope to move stuff around with the calendar, so. Hopefully, but honestly, I don't know. Well, I got to really dig to find out. But it's confirmed. That's the only thing that annoys me. Is that it's confirmed. People know it's done. The deal is done. We're just waiting for an announcement. Until we find out, until someone from Formula E breaks down and tells somebody, then I don't think we're going to know until the announcement.
Right.
Yeah, with round 5, I again, like everybody else thought it was going to be Mexico, and especially when the FIA released their provisional calendar in Mexico City, I was waiting for the announcement of, the Mexico race, but that never came to... that never came to fruition. But round 5, they said they've got somebody waiting. I remember, the end of the first season when Montreal was being tipped for the first race of 2016, so that could be a bit of an outside bet. And where Logano's concerned, I really think that they should put Logano on the weekend where they were planning to have the London E-Prix and then move the London E-Prix back, because then it gives the championship an extra race. It'll sort the calendar out totally.
If I was going to go for a poor speculation bet, someone told me Brazil, and I thought actually with the calendar being where it is in terms of America, I thought they don't want to go too far away from moving things across and so forth. They don't want to go long distance of that swim when they still got Long Beach. So I thought moving down to Brazil, might not be a...
And that makes sense because we had the failed Rio E3 that was originally going to be in the Season 1 calendar. We have 3 Brazilian drivers, all in sort of top teams. So.
And Rio, if you remember, 2016 got a lot of sporting activities, World Cup, the Olympic Games. There's a lot going on there, so maybe there could be something there to add to what could be a really big sporting year for Brazil.
Yeah, and we asked Bruno Senna about it, and a couple others. De Grassi, I think, was quite public about it. He said, well, he didn't know, he was really disappointed. He didn't know why it had fallen through, and he felt that there should be. Okay, let's finish off now with our final item, which is a fun little game, which is guess who gets the empty seats. Basically, we have about 5 teams that have yet to decide some seats. So Andretti haven't decided who's going with Di Silvestro. Edams haven't decided who any of their drivers will be. Well, maybe they've already decided but haven't announced. It definitely looks like it could be Buemi and Prost, as they're the only ones who've been testing for them. Next TV, again, it looks like it probably is going to be Turvey. In fact, we've heard that Motorsport.com pretty much already rumour confirmed it. And the other two who haven't confirmed driver, Team Aguri, who already talked a little bit about there might be a sponsor involved there, and Trilli, which is basically depending on whether Jarno's going to abdicate or not, and who he's going to put alongside. Might be Liuzzi, by the sounds of things. But what do you guys think?
Alright, then I'll go first. I'll try and name what I think will happen. Am and Andrea have no clue, honest to God, but my dream is they'll stick to what they've done. They'll keep from the Andretti family, and a person I really want to see from the Andretti family drive a Formula E car is Ryan Hunter-Reay.
What? I thought you were going to say Justin Wilson.
I really would love to see Ryan Hunter-Reay in a Formula E car for some reason.
Well, he's American. Or would it fit into his IndyCar program?
Yeah,
because that's what...
I would love to see him try and maybe do something.
Because Marco Andretti was going to stay, and then his IndyCar program got in the way. So.
Well, they managed to get the Silvestre out of the IndyCar system, so maybe they can...
Well, she didn't have a full-time seat.
Yeah, fair play. In terms of next EV, I think Oliver Turvey's a done deal.
Sure.
Team Aguri, for me, it'd be Duran and Lapierre.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
But to be fair, Dillman did a good job. It's hard to tell, but I think Lapierre. Yeah. But and for Trulli is the only other one then. So Trulli will be... I think Jarno will stay because he won't get a driver. And I don't know about this Liuzzi thing. I haven't heard much about it to believe that Liuzzi's actually in the car.
Any thoughts, Matt, on anyone you... It doesn't have to be a likely one. Anyone you'd just like to see in any of those seats?
Well, first of all, for the Andretti seat, I'd love to see Scott Speed back. I thought his introduction at the Miami E-Prix and his storm up to second, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And when I met him at the Monaco E-Prix,
flash in the pan. No disrespect, but it did seem like that was the only big result he had. But go on.
Yeah, as well. Like when I spoke to him at the Monaco E-Prix, he was such a nice fella, and I don't know. I think as well if Formula E are trying to gain some points in America. I think having an American driver will definitely help the competition. So personally, I'd like to see Scott Speed back at Andretti. I think Edams, it's a done deal. Buemi and Prost. Truly again, it's hashtag pray for Truly, isn't it? Because you've just got to...
It'll be like McLaren, believe in...
Yeah. And going back to Team Agori, I do think it will be Duran. And I think partnering him, I think it will be Dillman. The only reason why I think it will be Dillman is because during the time that Dillman was testing for Team Agori, he was, it was all over social media. He did a lot of media for
the Aguri
team.
Took a picture in front of him in front of the car as well, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that out of the drivers that have tested for Aguri, he's looked like he's wanted the seat more. And I think that may impact Aguri's decision, but everything's only speculation at the moment, apart from the EDAMS team and the next TV lineup, I think.
There's also something just before we finished that I read in autosport.com, like a premium article, so I thought I might as well mention that.
Okay.
I'm just going to run through the kind of configurations for all the teams of what Autosport thinks they're doing. So, at Scheifler, one motor with 3 gears. Andretti, one motor with 4 gears. DS Virgin. So they're saying that they are actually also doing a dual motor thing, like Next TV, with 1 gear, which is interesting. Mahindra, we know what 1 motor, 4 gears. Next Dev, 2 motors, 1 gear. And then Renault EDAMS again, surprisingly, but they're doing a dual motor thing with 2 gears. Team Aguri, as we know. And Trulli, No Idea, and Venturi, as we know, 1 motor, 4 gears. So the thing that stands out to me is that all the people who are doing 1 gear or 2 gears are using dual motors, and apparently what this article claims is that that's to lower the centre of gravity, because if they have 1 motor, essentially what they have to do is they have to have a bigger motor in size, and what that would mean is that their centre of gravity would be higher. So from what it sounds like, they're getting 2 smaller motors that then they can have lower down in the car, and that means that the centre of gravity doesn't get so high. So I don't know if if that is true.
I saw someone, I don't know how legit they are, but they just said it was to do with something to do with torque in the motor, that sort of if you've got, because it works differently, you don't need the gears necessarily depending on how the motor works. I don't know, sorry. You can tell I'm not a technical guy because just don't know.
No, I don't know either, and I think that again that will come into it, and cooling will come into it. But yeah, I think we'll find out more later on.
That's the beauty, though. We don't know, do we? Is Jacques Villeneuve going to win in his first E-Prix in Beijing? We don't really know. But I think that's it from us. We're gonna. I think the next one where we're gonna get everyone in, or as many as are available, is definitely going to be. We'll do another one before Beijing. Hopefully there'll be a few more of these announcements. But for now, I think it's time to say goodbye, and that's all that remains. And we'll see you soon. Next one will be the Battersea special issue, which I'm sure we're all very excited about, where we'll be hearing from Paul, who is a supporter of the Save Battersea Park group. And we'll be hearing his opinions, my opinions, and Jack's opinions on the whole debate about whether Formula E should be in Battersea Park, and should be very exciting. Well, it'll be very professional and respectful, hopefully. Anyway, see ya.